It was San Diego Comic-Con this past weekend, and joining me today are two very special guests, Terry Kavanagh and Carl Choi of 24/7 Comics, to recap the entire event. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another stream with Swagglehaus, a very, very special post San Diego Comic Con stream where we do a little bit of a recap talking about the wonderful con that just took place. I had a lot of fun at the show. I just put out a video earlier today talking about some of my pickups, some of my experience. Later on in the following weeks, I'm going to be releasing more stuff. I did a ton of filming, so you guys have that to look forward to. But for today, I thought it'd be cool to do a special stream with some guests that I don't usually get to have on the channel. Some very esteemed guests, award winners that we have on the show today to talk about their con experience and get into some of the other things that we don't always usually get to cover, when we're kind of in the comic book collectible space. But with that, slight introduction, let me bring on our special guest. We have Terry Kavanagh from Marvel Comics esteem and history, former editor-in-chief, and now editor-in-chief of 24/7 Comics. And speaking of, we have Carl Choi, publisher from 24/7 Comics. Gentlemen, thanks so much for hopping on the stream today. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
I'm a little tired. I overslept today. I literally had overslept 10 minutes on my alarm clock during a dream of my phone going crazy, sounding the alarm clock, and not being able to shut it off. So it was crazy.
10 minutes is not oversleeping, Carl. That's a snooze button.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird morning. But I'm here, man. I'm tired. It's been a long week. It's good seeing both of you guys at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm excited to dive into it.
Yeah. I'm very tired as well. I'm channeling as much enthusiasm and energy as I can right now into the stream. But it's okay because I can do it because I'm excited to have you guys with me. But Terry, I think that I wanted to start with you and just kind of get your overall experience. We were talking a little bit in the backstage before we went live. But I think, the cool story for people to hear about is that you actually got an Inkpot Award. And if people don't know, an Inkpot Award is a very special honor that's been given by the San Diego Comic-Con international community for many, many years. But maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience with that. Like, what was it like getting this, and why did you get it? And did you know that it was going to happen? And, kind of lay it down for us.
I had absolutely no idea it was going to happen. It was the beginning of a panel called Spotlight on Terry Kavanagh, which was unnerving enough to be doing. And Steve Saffel was moderating for me. And Tommy Goldback did a little introduction of me. He got very emotional talking about Ben Reilly and the clone and how that was his Spider-Man, and then presented me with the Inkpot, which I was blown away by. In fact, probably the worst panel I've ever done, because I was so sort of gobsmacked the whole time that I'm not sure I was answering the questions that were asked of me. But here, I will show it to you guys. It's a really cool looking statue.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's really neat. And it comes with a gold card that makes me a lifetime member of Comic-Con International, and I can go to any of their conventions for free and bring guests, and it's transferable. I can give it to other people to go. I probably shouldn't have said that out loud, but I did.
There's going to be a string of murders of past Inkpot Awards.
Yes.
That happened before next Comic-Con.
Yes. So it's really an honor, and I'm very touched by it. I'm not sure exactly what I got it for. It's for, creative contributions to comic arts.
Yeah, and Swagglehaus, you know this. I mean, Terry's so humble about it. Like, Terry, you so deserve.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you're being very humble of it. I mean, the people in the chat probably already know, but if they don't, I mean, Terry has worked on like every single comic book that you've been collecting your entire life. Basically all the way back in. When did you start at Marvel? Actually, let's get some of the facts straight here.
You would think I would know the answer to that. I'm gonna guess it was around 83 or 4, but I was unofficial at the time. I had quit my previous job and then traveled around Europe a bit and came back and had no work. So a friend of mine from high school, Michael Higgins, was the assistant editor on the FF books under Mike Carlin, and they were giving me letters page work. They would pay me $25 to come in, collect Fantastic Four letters, put them into, give some answers to the best of my ability and bring it back to them. I happened to be at the office one day. Ralph Macchio's assistant called in with some long-term illness. I don't know what it was, mono or something, and he was going to be out for 6 months. So Michael walked me into Ralph's office and said, Terry can be your assistant. And Ralph said, okay. And, come on in tomorrow. And I did. And when Ralph's assistant came back, by then I knew a lot of people at Marvel. They kept me around. They made me the submissions editor. Then Ann Nesenti's assistant left staff. And Bob Harris walked me into her office and said, Terry can be your assistant. And Ann, who knew me by that point, said, okay. And that's probably when I officially started, maybe a year after I had been around there working. Again, I don't know what year that was. I should know what year that was. I don't.
And since then you've basically worked on almost every series. I mean, certainly people know about Marvel Comics Presents and the Wolverine and all that stuff. But you mentioned Ben Reilly and having the Clones saga and story, and it's been it's amazing. And I'm just so happy for you that you were awarded this Inkpot Award. I feel like maybe for our purposes here, we can define it. If you guys don't know, the Inkpot Award is an honor bestowed annually since 1974 by Comic-Con International, is given to professionals in the fields of comic books, comic strips, animation, science fiction, and related areas of pop culture at Comic-Con International's annual convention. Also eligible are members of Comic-Con's boards of directors and convention committee. So, some big names, I think that you get to put yourself up against, especially in these last couple of years.
Spielberg is an Inkpot Award winner.
Spielberg, Kevin Feige. I mean, I'll sell Terry because he's not going to sell himself. So, I mean, Swagglehaus, some of the titles that Terry's worked on that we grew up with, Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X. I mean, he put Barry on that, or Barry brought it to him, and he greenlit it. He put Jay Lee on Neymar. I mean, that's a huge one, right, for us. Alan Davis on Excalibur. Who else? Stephen Platt on Moon Knight. I mean, this is so endless. I mean, there's just these curation and I think him doing what I think an editor's job is really important, because I think at 24/7 Comics, we spent years searching for an editor, and we met so many. And unfortunately, I think these days the job of an editor is more of I would call a production manager. I would say production manager, which is just shuffling through the pipelines. But Terry really does bring creative powers to the table and input and feedback, and I think that's what creators need these days, that we're so missing in a lot of books today. And so well deserved, Terry. Congratulations once again. It was cool to break bread with you immediately after you won the award. Yeah. That was very heartwarming for sure.
Well, thank you guys very much.
And it's funny because you already said this, but I'll have you say it for the stream. You haven't been to San Diego Comic-Con in 35 years. It took you winning this award to come out to the show, I guess.
I think it's been 32 years, yeah.
Wow.
And last time I went, it was a big convention, but nothing like it is now.
Yeah. Well, tell me about that. I'm curious, from your experience, I mean, what it was like going to the con, and even outside of just accepting the award, what'd you guys get into, at San Diego?
As you and I discussed a little backstage, it's mostly the social scene. I mean, I enjoy interactions with the fans a lot. But in this particular case, I was a special guest, myself and my wife. They treated us spectacularly. I even had a personal assistant named Kevin Till. Shout out to Kevin Till. He was great. I didn't have to spend a lot of time at the table. I did 2 panels, the Spotlight and then Evolution of Superheroes, with Mark DeMatteis and Jay Lee, who heckled me and I heckled him back because that's what we do. Todd Klein and J.G. Jones. And that was very interesting. Well attended. A lot of people had questions about because we all went back together. J.G. Jones was the only one I didn't really know until then. But it was theoretically about the evolution of superheroes, but it was more about talking about behind the scenes stories, which we all have plenty of.
Yeah. Carl, what was your trip to San Diego? I mean, I'm sure you got a lot of you got into a lot of things, but what was kind of like the main things that you were focused on this year?
I think I was focused on being unfocused. This year was also very different for me. For those of you who, this is my first stream in like 2 months because I've been away shooting a movie, and I basically went to Korea for 2 weeks vacation, came back, landed on Wednesday, and drove straight down to Comic-Con. And why it was different for me this time was because my nephew wanted to go. And so I ended up basically playing uncle all weekend, doing things that I would just never do, like standing in line for Lilo and Stitch panel, or being at the Warhammer painting room, painting Warhammer figures. So it was very different as to what I usually would do. But I did have an agenda, and I'm happy to say that weirdly, somehow, some way, I checked off everything on my agenda, including picking up this amazing cover from the Superman Friend Unleash #1.
Well, let me switch this over right here to our original art, which we're going to talk about. But yeah, so in case you guys don't know, that's the Superman movie tie-in. Milkbone did like a special comic book for buy a box of dog biscuits and get a comic book with it, and it became this extremely popular comic book all of a sudden. And Carl, you got your hands on the original art, which is wild.
That was wild. And I think, kind of parlaying to that, you had moderated a panel on Friday night with our friends Dinesh, Mike, and one of the curators from the museums about original art. And that was a major highlight for me. I think it was super fun just to see a bunch of friends on the panel talking about all the different pieces of art that we've all kind of acquired over time. And then I think the highlight there was also when you had asked how many people actually haven't been collecting art but is interested. I mean, we had a huge showing of new collectors that showed interest in the hobby, and so that really warmed my heart. That was super fun.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because go ahead, Terry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and how neat that you got to do it with your nephew and see it through maybe slightly less jaded eyes.
Yes, I would say that. I was saying by the end of the con, the night before the con was over, I remember him and I just having like a solid, hour conversation. And I thanked him. I said, "Hey, thank you for, bringing back a lot of the heart that is the con, like the wonder," right? Because he was like seeing everything with fresh eyes, and he wanted to zigzag through the whole convention. Which at first, in the first day, I was like, "Oh, am I ever going to do this?" And then by the time the second, third day came, I was like, "Wow, like there's so much new stuff that I glossed over the last 5 years because I'm so much in a hurry to like meet people. I'm on this agenda to like connect with folks, pick stuff up, or do meetings. I didn't really get to like enjoy and take in the con, and so having fresh eyes was a huge plus, and this will make it a very memorable Comic-Con for me for sure.
That's great. I had my wife with me. My wife's not in the industry, and she was with me, and I got to watch that sort of through her eyes as well. Like, she really wanted to go to the masquerade. I would never have done that, but we went, and it was fascinating. It was totally different than what I expected. People were doing little vignettes, not just people walking across the stage.
Yeah, it's kind of like being living in a city and never going to visit a monument. And then when your friend is out of town, they're like, "Hey, I actually want to look at the Statue of Liberty?" And you're like, "I've actually never been to the Statue of Liberty," and you kind of go and you're like, "Actually, this is pretty cool," and I wonder if that's sort of like the experience. But one thing I did want to talk about was a little bit of this original art panel here. Terry, if you don't know, I hosted an original comic art panel. And one thing that's kind of interesting about, where original art is I feel like a lot of the comic books that even you specifically worked on, at the time, like around the 80s and 90s that we all love collecting, that in a lot of ways was like the most popular in terms of like people buying and reading and celebrating those comic books. But, unfortunately, because you guys printed so many, those are the ones that aren't necessarily the valuable ones that people are collecting now because there's too many copies out there. But a lot of people our age are going back and really trying to find those original art pieces. And that's really what we've been, talking about. And I even made mention about how Carl, has spent a pretty penny on the Barry Windsor Smith thing. And I'm just curious, like, what you think about original art collecting these days, and people going back and spending tens of thousands of dollars, even sometimes $100,000 on things that you worked on. Probably all these pages that were just stacked up on your desk at one point. What do you make of the collecting world?
I love that people have a passion, whatever that passion is. And, when I started collecting comics way back when, I could set a goal to collect all Marvel comics. I started collecting probably in 68, 69. So I could set a goal to do all that. That's not feasible for people today. So to look at more specific stuff like original art, I think is a great evolution of it. And I will tell you, I have some original art hanging on my wall here, mostly gifts from other creators. But in 1978 or so, I was at a convention in New York and bought an original page of George Perez art that he signed, and it cost me $20 total.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's probably the only piece I've ever bought. And at that same convention, I ran into Neil Adams. I asked him for an autograph, and he did a full Batman head sketch with an autograph. It was just different then. It really was.
Yeah, that Perez page is probably your single most highest multiple investment in your life.
Oh, yes. No question about it.
Yeah. It's interesting because, one thing that I probably won't be able to get enough time to talk about it on my channel, but hopefully we can talk about it here, is this big news that came out of San Diego, which was the George Lucas museum that he's opening up. If you guys don't know, George Lucas made his first ever appearance at San Diego. He did a Hall H panel. And I have this Bleeding Cool article up right here that says George Lucas discusses museum during his first SDCC panel appearance. And I'll just read the highlights to give you guys kind of an idea of what it is. But it's George Lucas made his first official. George Lucas made his first official SDC panel appearance to discuss the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. The museum opens in Los Angeles in 2026, exploring illustrated storytelling from cave art to comics. Lucas, Guillermo del Toro, Doug Chiang, and moderator Queen Latifah shared the insights, and the highlights of the museum include rare original comics like Flash Gordon, Black Panther, and Peanuts from the 1950s and 60s. And I just think this is a really interesting thing. It's like, Carl, we've been talking about how, like, original art keeps gaining momentum and more people are interested in it. And actually, one of the questions I had in my panel that I was going to ask Patrick, who was an art curator there, was that I didn't get around to it because we ran out of time, was why do we think that this sort of pop cultural art hasn't yet been recognized in like mainstream spaces as like this very important historical American cultural art form that has been created? Like, why isn't it sort of celebrated among masses? And here we are, George Lucas making this museum. I kind of feel like this is that first step.
Okay. I mean, for context, original comic art, and Terry, feel free to chime in. Original comic art was part of the production process. And so in most people's eyes at the time, it was just production, gunk, right? It wasn't anything like, it was like whatever film, obviously we treat film differently, but it was just gunk that you kind of throw away. And the collecting culture was a very underground thing. Like, it was almost like you have to know people to be able to be invited into the art collecting community. And then even a couple of steps before that, some of the dealers that became dealers today, they would literally go like dumpster dive at Marvel's trash can and DC's trash can, and they would take tons of art from the dumpsters and put into their trucks every week, and that was their thing. I don't know if Terry, you've heard anything about that before. And then on top of that, then as it evolved, some of these warehouses would be so full of art that even some of like the Marvel employees would sell them by the pounds out the back door of the buildings. And then there's also been stories where Stan Lee would invite folks on tour at Marvel, and he would give kids, original art as like a keepsake, and he'll sign them. And that's why you'll find a lot of art with Stan Lee's signature on them. And so the constant kind of evolution of it all is what I think this museum is actually going to talk a lot about. George Lucas actually talks about, and he sees this as narrative arts and serves as a foundation for storytelling. And it's really cool to hear him talk about it because I watched it once while I was driving, kind of on the freeway and whatnot. So I didn't really pay heavy attention to it. But between him and Guillermo del Toro, from what I know, have a huge collection. And they actually announced that he has about 40,000 pieces of original art that he'll be showcasing. What was really fun was I had a friend who actually accidentally walked into the panel. So him and his wife got to the con a little late on Sunday. It was around 10:45, and they saw a line, and he saw this other line, and he told his wife, "Why don't we just get in this line? It's faster." They moved in, and all of a sudden they found themselves in Hall H. And he was like, "What the heck?" Wow. It's like, I guess I'll stay here. And he told me, and he's a prominent collector in the community, Steve, and he told me that a lot of the art that they were showing that was going to be an exhibit are not just stuff that was said to be sold 10 years ago. Even more recent stuff. There was a splash from Superman Doomsday, from the Death of Superman, that we all talked about in our chat. Said, "Oh man, that went for a good price." Lucas bought that, and he actually showed it at the panel. So he's very current. Like he's on top of it, and he's still collecting for his museum. And then Guillermo del Toro also talked about how he looks forward to sharing his collection at the museum as well. So it looks like it won't be just Lucas's personal collection, but even some of his friends who are heavy comic art collectors will be showcased in this. And then the third point is, leading up to this whole museum opening, I think was also one of the main reasons comic art has gotten so expensive, because within the underground community, the talk of comic art now being put on a mainstream platform has gotten a lot of collectors to scramble and grab the pieces they can before this museum opens up, because once it becomes less of an underground thing, which I think at this point, like the lid's been blown open, right, Mickey? And so, prices are just going to inflate. And I think that has come true in a big way, because, a lot of what I've gotten recently wasn't funded from cash out of pocket. It was funded by comic art I bought 7 years ago. And I'm just upgrading in a way, right? And so you'll find that a lot of longtime collectors do collect in a very similar way. And so I just feel lucky to have started a little bit earlier than some.
And I wonder if original art has also gone up in value because so many artists are now doing their work digitally. So there's less and less new original art becoming available. And I find that interesting. I understand that they can probably work faster digitally, but there's an income stream, a revenue stream they're giving up.
Yeah, in fact, the Superman cover I got is the only piece from that comic that was traditional, because he was facing some deadlines, and the artist said he did the interiors all digitally.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I do think it's a huge revenue stream for a lot of artists that do traditional art, especially you go over to Artist Alley and they're doing commissions and stuff. Like I kind of feel bad for like the digital artists, because it's like, how do they have a product that they can offer, and I think it's something that they probably need to supplement their income. So it's good that people are getting into art and supporting artists like that. And I think it's cool, with this museum, because as far as I understand it, like, sure, there will be historical pieces, but I also think it's going to celebrate some of the art that's harder to quantify. Like, there's movie art that is done for Star Wars when people are kind of designing the visual effects and doing concept art and paintings and things like that. And I think some of those people are going to be brought to the limelight and forefront. And, look at these people who designed the entire world of, say, like Star Wars, before it actually got made into a movie. And that art, I think is really cool. And video game art as well. There's a lot of people that do world building in the video game space. So I think it's cool to see that this is starting to get some due. and people are starting to celebrate it. And I'm definitely going to go to this museum when it opens up next year. That's for sure.
I'm not sure if you know this too, Mickey, but George Lucas is the only company where if an artist produces a piece of artwork for Lucasfilms, George Lucas has a clause in his contract that he gets the first rights of refusal to buy the art piece. So
Wow.
9 out of 10 pieces of original art produced under the Lucas umbrella is owned by George Lucas. And so that's why if you see Star Wars art come up on the secondary market, the prices are usually pretty hefty because there's just, supply and demand.
Fascinating.
Right. Well, one of the other interesting things, of course, with the big two with San Diego, they're always going to have their announcements of new titles and new comics and things coming out. And I kind of want to just quickly scroll past it just so we can, talk about it. Of course, Fantastic Four had their cool pop up. I don't know if you guys got to see their build out for the downtown FF here, which I thought was pretty cool. We'll talk about that in a second.
Sure.
Then Marvel has a new kind of X-Men series that's they're calling Age of Revelation, which looks kind of crazy. We got a Nova.
Nova looks good. Yeah, Nova's awesome.
Thing here going on. And then a Deadpool Batman crossover with like some Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, hilarious.
That's kind of interesting. Ultimate Spider-Man, which has been a pretty successful run for them. Issue 24 now. And then something I care about, Marvel Rivals doing skin crossover music video stuff. Seems like they're taking a page right out of Riot Games' playbook, for sure. But I'm curious, Terry, what do you think? I don't know how much attention you've been paying to today's Marvel and what they're sort of doing, but what do you kind of make of just the state of current big two publishing, maybe compared to what was going on back when you were really in the thick of it in the 90s and stuff, doing these kind of crossover. It's not like Uncanny X-Men. This is Amazing X-Men. It's sort of an offshoot. And I guess maybe that's just the machine that you have to do these days and make all these different titles. It's that as a consumer, it feels a little bit bad. I'd rather just read X-Men. But what do you kind of make of where modern publishing is?
That's hard for me to answer. I still read comics. I love comics. I always will. I do feel that the modern decompressed storytelling, I mean, what takes place in 22 pages now in a comic used to take place in the first 6 pages of a comic in my day. Now they just seem to be chapters towards the trade paperback. I'm not judging, if that's the way it works, if that's where the retail is in the bookstores, etc. That's fine, because I know we don't have the comic book audiences we used to have back in my day. And I do feel a little like when we launched a new series, it was a little more organic in the old days. A character would be a breakout character from a particular series we were doing, and then they would get their own series. Now, sometimes I feel like it's just to launch a lot of new number ones. And I don't want to sound negative about the industry. I understand it's a different industry. It should evolve to whatever works best. And obviously the movies and TV shows make much more money than the printed comics. So I understand now that it's almost research and development. It's almost R&D for those other mediums. So the more they print, the better. The more that might come out of that into other mediums.
Right. Do you think that let's talk about Nova as a character, not quite at the level of Spider-Man or X-Men who can command their continuous ongoing series. Is the discussion in the buildings always hey, we haven't done a Nova thing. Let's put out a thing with him and just do a pulse check of how popular is he these days? Is that what these things kind of are? Or do they kind of say every 18 months, let's pull out that character just because to keep them fresh? How do those conversations happen?
I can't speak to how it happens these days there. But I do suspect a character like Nova, I know is very important to fans when it first came out. Eric Larson gets his favorite comic book of all time because that was really a comic that started when he was a kid and it was a collector. It was his version of Spider-Man, really. So it's worth trying them. And they did do this series Imperial and reintroduced the character into the universe. So in a sense, they did this in a very organic way, and give him a shot. He'd lend himself to to a TV show very well, or even movies very well. Why not give it a shot?
Right. And what do you make of the Marvel DC crossovers? They've been doing a few of them this year.
That's always fun and exciting. You know, that makes the fan heartbeat in me go a little faster.
Were you there when they did the first time, Terry?
The first crossovers? No, I was not on staff at that point. No.
I think it was after. I think you were writing at the time, right?
Yeah, I was a
I'm always kind of curious how those conversations happen, and like how much planning it takes between the two publishers, especially these days. I mean, it's two corporate giants, right, putting their stuff together.
I imagine it's very different today. In those days, the Marvel staff and the DC staff and all the creators, we all intermingled. We were all going to the same parties. We knew each other. We talked. I don't think it was that difficult for them to come up with story. Because again, I'm never able to communicate what it was like to work at Marvel in those days. It was really such a golden age. I can't imagine there's ever been a job better. We all loved what we did. We would have done it for the free comics if we didn't have to pay for rent and beer. And so they were fans. When the editor, a Marvel editor, talked to a DC editor about doing a crossover, they just wanted to do it as well as possible and make sure their character got represented really well. That was their job, but they were going for the best possible story. It wasn't about, I'm sure legal had to get involved and do certain things, but that was not the core of it. Where now it might be, we need to do a big crossover between the two companies because it's good for both companies. Back then it was because how cool would it be to see Batman and Spawn together?
Right.
Yeah, it actually reminds me a lot of like the YouTube culture, where I think YouTube, social media, a lot of influencers tend to do these like crossovers to cross-populate their audiences or cross-pollinate their audiences. And I do feel like even the corporate giants are realizing they can't reach everybody, and in order to kind of do that, they cross over. And people are a little bit less protective of their brands, I think, because Disney would have been the super protector, right? They would never collaborate with anyone. But all of a sudden, this last like 3-4 years, I think they were forced to just be part of the zeitgeist and allow their brands to appear in other places. And then now licensing back other brands to appear in their stuff. And so I think that's pretty powerful.
That's a good point. I think it's harder to.
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah.
Probably got more comfortable with it in dealing with Spider-Man and bringing Spider-Man into the MCU, etc. So that might have opened up some doors for them, and they saw the value of it.
I think it did. Yeah, that's a good note.
And I also would just add, I just think with the medium is the message. The world we live in today, where it's much harder to have a centralized mainstream because everyone kind of lives off in their own social media worlds and stuff. Like, to cut through the noise is so much harder, and you kind of need to leverage as much other IP and partnerships and collaborations as you can to get the same effect as you used to. And it's not just Marvel and DC; it's definitely other games like Magic: The Gathering and Marvel, which had a big collaboration at San Diego Comic-Con. And Carl, I think you have some packs actually next to you.
Yeah, thanks to Don Maddock, we got a few packs here from the Spider-Man set that Comic-Con was giving out. So there was a collaboration with Spider-Man. I think there's a multi-year deal with Marvel and Magic: The Gathering. I'm a huge Magic: The Gathering fan, and so this is like definitely been like music to my ears. And the first set that they announced this year was Spider-Man collaboration, and so this crossover allowed them to do a huge activation at San Diego Comic-Con, which they had basically built out the whole like Daily Bugle and like a little bit of a New York street. And I think one of the best parts about it was they built this kind of learning room where people got to learn and play Magic: The Gathering, and they were given these exclusive decks. And these decks were really rare. I think within the first day, they were selling for like $100 a pop. And they're still rare because they're only giving out one per person at San Diego Comic-Con. And one thing I offered to do today was, because Don Maddock was so generous to give us some of these for promotional purposes. We should give away one of these to the streaming audience today. So
let's do it.
We do that.
So how about this? Let's do a special giveaway. Let's match this text. What should we call it? Inkpot Award 24/7.
Let's do that.
Jeez.
All right, let's do this. How about 24/7 comics? Keep it simple.
I can't wait to tell Chris Cooper about these cards. He's a huge Magic the Gathering fan.
And man.
Ex-Marvel editor.
All right, if you guys want to get a chance to win, put 24/7 comics in the chat. Do they have to do the hashtag, or is it just the word? Do you know, Carl?
I'm not sure actually. I guess we'll.
I think it's just 24/7 comics. Just spam it. Everybody spam it a bunch of times. 24/7 comics. Put it in the chat. Give yourself a chance to win, hashtag or not.
Yep. Just 24/7 comics, and then Dominic Glover, that's the homie. He had a new Kickstarter launch recently. And just to answer your question, Dominic, man, I missed you at San Diego Comic-Con. There's another person I missed. I mean, this time was just, being uncle. But to answer your question, the next project is going to be Evermind Part 2. We actually just, had a call with Daniel Wu and Sean Chen this morning, who are the partners and co-creators on that. And we're going to be activating at New York Comic-Con. It'll be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. All right. So we got people spamming in. We'll start collecting some things. Hopefully you don't have to do the pound symbol. If you did the pound symbol, do it again without the pound symbol, so that we can get everyone's numbers in here.
Yeah, do it without.
We'll keep gathering it up for a bit.
Now Cameron did 6 times. Is that a hack of sorts?
No, I don't think so. I think there's only a one-time entry. So hopefully it's wait, can I go back? Okay, all right. Still going up. All right, cool. We'll give it a few more minutes here, and then we'll give one of these ones away.
Which one should we give away? Should we give away Gwen Stacy? Should we give Spider Gwen? Should we do Miles Morales? Should we do 2099?
Let's let Terry pick here. Did you work on 2099? I feel like you might have, right?
I did some 2099 writing. Yeah.
Then 2099 it is. We should do that. I'm also going to jump off and jump back on because, as you guys know, my internet's been kind of crazy. I'll be right back.
All right.
Let's pull it up here. All right, we have 20 plus entries. We're going to wait for Carl. He's going to come on in, and we're going to give away the 2099 pack.
Quick, everyone. We can talk about Carl behind his back now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, too late. He's already back, unfortunately.
Yes, missed your chance.
All right. Here we go. Let's give it a draw, and let's see who this winner is of the Magic the Gathering Spider-Man 2099 pack, excuse me. And the lucky winner is V3NG3Vin3. Congratulations.
Nice.
All right, how did they get in touch with you, Carl?
Just email me at carl@247comics.com or DM me on social media. Just give me a screenshot of this so I know you are here. And that's all it takes. So take a moment, do a screenshot, and then I'll have this for you and shipped your way. Congratulations. You got yourself a Spider-Man 2099 deck.
Nice. We have message. I think I have Carl's Instagram in the description, so you can easily find him or you can email him. But yeah, congratulations. There you have it.
And welcome to Magic the Gathering if you haven't played before.
Absolutely. It's definitely a Pandora's box. Well, I thought I would just kind of pull up because we showed the Marvel titles. I might as well kind of talk about the DC stuff that they're doing. I thought that this was interesting. They're kind of doing this like tournament thing. You guys hear about this? This is their new kind of crossover book. Terry, what do you think of this? They're basically let's just do a tournament and put like Flash versus Martian Manhunter or whatever. And each kind of comic series is going to be, their fantasy matchups of villains and heroes going up against each other. It's called
That's
KO. I don't know if they're trying to pander to the UFC audience or what the deal is here, but this is their big sort of crossover event. Um,
That's a
and
brilliant
then
idea.
on top of that,
I didn't know anything about it, but that's brilliant.
yeah, and then on top of that, they have a new Matt Fraction Batman coming out. And one of the interesting things with this is that they're doing the blind bag craze. Now, I'm curious, Terry, do you know about blind bags? And you know about this whole craze going on in the collector world?
I do not.
The
Well,
thing.
let's kind of put it like this. I'm sure when you were working there, you knew about the poly bag
Sure.
situation. And
Sure.
there are people doing poly bags. What this has kind of become is the next evolution of that. It's sort of like the poly bag mixed with a Magic the Gathering pack. And this has kind of taken over all comic publisher worlds where now they're putting a bunch of comics inside a pack and you can pack rip and maybe you get the special limited edition one or the 1 in 25, and this has become like the new craze. And this was one that was at the San Diego, this thing called the KRS All-Star Comics Pack. So inside of it, it had Power Girl and different covers on it, and you'd rip it open and maybe you get the special chance to win, or pull out the very rare version of that comic book. And as you guys can see, selling for $134. I think retail they were selling for $40, I think, at San Diego Comic-Con. So people really excited about that. Anyways, I just bring it back to this Batman here. When this Batman comic line comes out, they're going to be putting all of these Batmans in blind bags. So I assume that this is the cover A. So you're always going to be able to get the cover A, but when you open up the blind bag, rip open that thing, you might get the very special cover. So a lot of gimmicks and interesting tricks and little things people are doing in the comic space to get people to buy. But yeah, Terry, what do you think about that? And what do you think about gimmicks? I mean, you were there for the whole like foil craziness and all that. What were some of the discussions in the building at that time?
Yeah, I have no issue with gimmicks. People can buy them or not. And I do feel like that towards the end of my time, we were using them to play to speculators, not fans. And that might have done some harm to the industry in general. I mean, when you release a Spider-Man #1 that sells 3 million copies and an X-Men #1 that sells 8 million copies, they become the least valuable comic books out there, even though the point, what we tried to sell them as, these are going to be huge, valuable collector's items. But since there's more of those comics than any other comic book, they are, in fact, the least valuable comics out there. And we did a lot of that with hologram covers, etc. It was experimenting, and I'm not against experimenting. I'm really not. I think sometimes I would be concerned that if it had a holo cover, and let's say it was Web of Spider-Man 100 or it had a metallic cover, it was going to up the price for the audience. And that sometimes was a little bit of a concern for me. If you had a fan of Web of Spider-Man and they just wanted to buy issue 100, there was no way to get it for its regular price.
Right.
What's funny
what do you
is
think about the blind bags?
well,
the
I mean,
Magic the Gathering adaptation.
yeah, real quick comment to what Tara's saying. What's funny is in those days of really high print runs and super popular comics, even though it kind of diluted the value of the comics, it actually over time increased the value of the original comic art because of the level of exposure of some of these covers. Those art pieces became the most in demand one of ones. So that's kind of cool how that happened. When it comes to blind bags, Mickey, I actually feel like this is a new way of distribution. One of the things I've said since I became a publisher was I actually believe comic books are underpriced and undervalued because the amount of time it takes to, develop a comic book from in conception to the writing to the art process to the pages to print and development, and then procuring all the covers needed to create these variant covers. I always said the comic book is still underpriced because if you think about the price of comics and the cost of what it takes to produce, the cost has only gone up while the price have really only inched up a bit. So while Magic the Gathering cards used to be $5 packs. Now you have collector packs selling for $100, $200 a pack, right? And comics are, take so much more resources to make. And they were still charging $5, but now you could charge a blind bag price of $40 for maybe 3 comics. Yeah, you don't know what you're getting, but that's also a part of it. It's part of the experience that you're paying for. And I feel like this is only the beginning. I think we're just starting to see this. And I think we're scratching the surface. I think there's going to be a lot more technology involved, a lot more packaging coming of it. And my justification for it all is you're creating now a new experience, which is long overdue for the comic book consumption space. So I'm super excited about it. We have some ideas around 24/7 as well, but it does take a lot of resource to actually package comics in that way. And so it's probably a little bit out for us, but we're pretty excited about, this being introduced to the market as a whole.
So just so I understand, I know I'm buying Batman #1. I just don't know what cover or what else is going to come in the blind bag.
Correct.
But I know what comic I'm buying. Okay.
Well, so yes, Terry, but funny enough, there was one that was done for the Invincible series recently, and they kind of started this whole craze of it. And it was possible that when you open it up, one of the special ones that you got was issue #2. So in the very rare circumstances, you might have bought it expecting to get issue 1, but technically you got issue 2. So that was I thought that was kind of funny. But yes, in most instances, no matter what you get, you're still getting it. You just might get the more special cover. And they did it nicely where, it's retail price no matter what. It's still $4.99 or whatever the case is. So you're not paying $50 to get the $5 comic book with the chance to win. Not all publishers have done it as honorably as that, and we're kind of seeing where this is all shaking out, because everybody is jumping on this craze. So it's very interesting to see how collectors react to it, and also if it's going to become oversaturated or if people still enjoy it. But this is kind of the 2025 version of the comic craze.
Our friends in the chat also spoke about the Labubu craze, which I think is feeding into all this, right?
Funny enough, yeah, I was going to, tab over to Labubu, and I was going to ask Terry, did you get your Labubu at San Diego?
I did not, and I never heard of it until yesterday when my daughter brought it up to me. One of the things, I got souvenirs for both my son and daughter who are adults, and I got a Funko Pop of Post Malone for my daughter. And so she was thrilled. She loves Post Malone and didn't know anything about Funko Pops, but she brought up to me Labubu and showed me, went and looked it up online and showed it to me. I was unaware of any of this happening at the convention.
Yeah, Labubu is not too dissimilar from the blind bag. It's a mystery box, and they're these like kind of Beanie Baby things, and
that's what
they're crazy. They're making hand over fist amount of money right now.
Wow.
Yeah. It single-handedly pumped up China's GDP because it made a new billionaire. So this guy who's maybe in his 30s, he started about 10 years ago, and it's called Pop Mart, and it's these retail stores that sold blind boxes of these like toys. And Labubu's gotten so popular, I think they had like 7 billion revenues, something really insane. Like way beyond like a Hasbro or something, which is crazy. So
wow.
Yeah. Well, speaking of trying to make $1 billion, maybe not getting there, I'm curious if you guys ended up seeing Fantastic Four, the big movie that came out during the weekend. Terry, did you get a chance to check it out?
I saw it yesterday with my son and daughter. I loved it. My son, neither of my kids are comic book fans, but my son's into the MCU. He didn't love it as much. He liked it. He liked it a lot more than some previous ones. My daughter's not even into the MCU particularly, but she liked it more than he did. I'm always curious. I know sometimes I like or dislike something based on my fan knowledge of the product. So I'm always curious when someone like the opinion of someone like her who really doesn't have any, she's not steeped in Fantastic Four lore or anything like that. And I liked seeing that she liked it. And I will tell you this is going to make me unpopular. I liked it way more than Superman.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Why did you like it?
I really like the interaction of the characters. And that's really what's going to make a story no matter what medium. It's the characters. I don't care about the powers. Although I found it, I don't want to spoil anything. I found the way they work together as a team and their powers. And one would use their power to help another one's power, etc. And I liked the relationship between Reed and Sue. It was a very real type relationship between a husband and wife. They were a family, which is the way the Fantastic Four should be presented, not as a team, but as a family. And they made that point over and over and over again.
Carl, what about you? I know maybe you didn't like it as much, but what's your kind of general review?
Opposite. I mean, opposite Terry. I actually liked Superman more. I think a couple reasons. I think one, I think with Fantastic Four, the reason why I think it really stands out is the production design. I think the whole like retro feature was like just the right bet. Number two, why so now I'll go into why I don't like it. Number one, Pedro's just in too many things. I think because I consume so much content, I see so much of him. It was so hard to get my headspace into Fantastic Four as a story. Number two was, and maybe again, this goes to my kind of industry knowledge, is there was a ton of reshoots and a ton of stuff cut out from what I know. And they had to do a lot of last minute pivots, and it showed on screen. Like, I think maybe because I knew that, it like, I caught so many moments where, oh, wait, that doesn't make sense. Wait, they totally switched that. And like, it made me question that. And then three, it was just boring, man. Like, it was really slow. I think, for the most part, there goes my screen again. For the most part, okay, I'll share this. The highlight of my screening was there was a moment where it was pretty slow, and then someone went snore super loud, and the whole theater just freaking cracked up hard. It was so funny, and yeah, it threw me off, threw everyone off, and I think it really showcased that. And I think like I'll even list a couple more reasons. Power levels were just very off. Like for me, I don't want to spoil anything, but power levels are really off. And then the antagonist,
I'll give you that.
I'm a huge fan of the antagonist, and I don't think they serve them right. And so those are all my reasons of why I didn't love it. I'll be right back. I'm going to jump again to the other.
I agree with you about the power levels. I agree with that. I did think the motivation for the antagonist, it was different than we're used to seeing. And I thought it was cleverly designed, that motivation. They combined two different big moments in Fantastic Four history to tell one story rather well, I thought. What did you like about Superman, Carl?
Okay, I'll close off Fantastic Four with why I think it's getting such good reviews. I actually think Marvel has been a dumpster fire in the last few years, and expectations were just so low. And I think there's this kind of nostalgia to what Marvel MCU was as far as a product producer. Because I still watch a lot of them. When I'm on the plane, I'll be like, oh, let's turn on Captain America Winter Soldier. Oh, let's turn on this. I watch a lot of these movies, and they are like just head and shoulders. Those are like 9 and 10s. To me, this Fantastic Four was like a 6.5. While let's say the recent Captain America was like a solid 3. So I think like if you've gotten so used to disappointments, having a 6.5, it literally feels like a 9 because you've been hoping for that, right? So I think that's the reason why it's actually getting the good reviews. Why I like Superman, many reasons. It wasn't like any James Gunn movie you've ever seen before, which I think it could be seen as a negative, but to me, I think it shows maturity in his positioning as a co-studio head, because he leveraged this movie to introduce a whole new world, and not just the world of characters, the world of aesthetics. It looks nothing like a Marvel movie. It really showcased how much of a fan he is of like the Golden Age, Silver Age comics, because it literally kind of brought us into that kind of cheeky, silly comic book world. And I think it was risky, but I think it's at least different and fresh. And then I also liked it because it used a lot of fresh characters as far as even talent goes, where you're seeing a lot of these faces. You're familiar with them, but they're not quite blown up yet. While Marvel is still on the same old trick with Fantastic Four, like Pedro. Come on, like could you have casted anyone, less famous, right, or more famous, right? You couldn't, like that. Like all these faces are like super familiar, from the guy from the Stranger Things, and it's almost like kind of like safe bets in a way. And then lastly, I thought it was cool because it felt like as if you're a new reader in a comic, you're not always going to get that origin story right away, and you might not even need it. You just throw in the middle of it. I actually really appreciated that type of kind of action-packed adventure that you're part of, and it was like really upbeat, minus the whole Lois and Clark conversation parts where I think people criticize. But for the most part, it was very upbeat. It was a fast movie. It was very authentic to like old school comic books, and most importantly, it was fresh. So that's why I like Superman.
Yeah, I like the portrayal of Superman, and actually, I really liked the twist about the Kryptonians. Without going too far, I just found there was a lot of bold exposition in it, and maybe that was to make things clear to people. But I felt like the writer was talking down to me in ways. I thought there were almost too many other characters introduced, although I understand that part of the mandate here was to introduce, a universe. I also, if it were up to me, although they didn't dwell on this alien thing, I would have left out any other references to aliens. Like Green Lantern, we know comes from an alien cop force, and Hawkgirl is a Thanagarian, etc. I would have liked in the first movie to have seen Superman as a lone alien on the planet, and really a lone representative of life elsewhere, which would have played up the story about is he friend or foe, which is sort of what they were trying to tell. And when it's a world where they have experience with a number of other aliens, that didn't resonate as true for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm with you, Terry, in that I like Fantastic Four more than Superman. I wasn't big on Superman. I already did a review on it, so I won't like go into it again. But I understand that people do like it. And I think that a lot of the reasons I don't like it, outside of being very, very technical, and I could like definitely explain why I don't think the script works and all this stuff. But I think what I liked about FF is what people didn't, or what people liked about Superman in it being the opposite, in so much as I like that FF was slower. I like that we spent more time with the characters. And while we didn't get a origin story, which is like them specifically getting on a spaceship and getting cosmic rays and all that stuff, they still recycled it in a way for us. And I felt like Superman didn't do that in any way that was like effective. And it's hard for me to take in prior knowledge, even though I know all about Superman. When I sit in a movie theater, I personally am like, okay, lights are down, and like this is page one for me. Like, you gotta introduce me to this character, this Superman. Like, I don't care that I have all this other knowledge about him, but we kind of just hit the ground running. So I found it hard to get on board with like him as a character. I didn't feel like I knew this Superman. But I liked FF, but I agree with you, Carl. Like, it's not, there's such a recency bias. Like, there's not like, this is not Winter Soldier or Civil War level. I kind of put it more on like I thought it was an effective, like the very first Thor movie, which is kind of like pretty solid, introduces the character. It's not the greatest Marvel movie ever made, but it was good. And I kind of think that this was that. And I think that this FF movie is going to pay a lot of dividends for these characters because we spend so much time with them that now that we understand them, I think, cool, now pair them with Hugh Jackman Wolverine, and it's going to be fun to watch. And you guys can do all the things now. So I think it was good that they spend more time with it. And I do understand your critiques about, power levels and stuff. I definitely was like, oh, okay, I didn't know you could do that. But I'll do my full review of it later on. But I enjoyed it more than Superman. But actually, this might be a hot take. I actually like Thunderbolts more than both of those movies. I thought even Thunderbolts was more effective than.
Oh, dude, I was gonna say that. I actually enjoy Thunderbolts better than Fantastic Four. And
but what my existential crisis has been that I've always been pretty like. I think I have good movie taste, and I think I know what I like. But as I get older, I think I'm starting to see, oh, I think culture is changing and what they want out of a movie versus what I am looking for out of a movie. And so I'm kind of like, oh, I think I'm getting old. I think it's moving past me, um, what people like in their entertainment. And so I had my own little scare about that.
Yeah, we're no one's target audience anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting you guys say that too. I actually felt like on a commercial, like a business level, Superman was very conscious of that. Like it's total ADD generation, totally like memes and laughs, and kind of create a lot of smirks on my face when I was watching it. And I think with Marvel, I think they're in this kind of I think they practically squeezed out most of their goodwill. I think for their brand, and and for both sides, I think this is almost like a fresh start. They're both setting up for the future of what's to come. But I have to say, like, there's a lot of baggage on the MCU side. Unfortunately, I think like they're gonna have to try to and figure out how to reconfigure everything. While Superman, I think it made me very hopeful for the DC universe. Like for me, I think Marvel will have one more try with Avengers Doomsday as they're not done yet. I think they still need Avengers Doomsday to fully refresh because they have a lot of baggage. But I think Superman has effectively fully refreshed DC. I think that on a business level, that's kind of what I see.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see, where it all goes, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Avengers and where the James Gunn universe goes from here. But we've been going about an hour. I think maybe that was a kind of a good little run for us for a recap of San Diego. But maybe you can just quickly recap before we go, Carl and Terry. Just 24/7, what you guys got going on. We had the Heroes Be Damned Kickstarter that wrapped up. How's the fulfilling looking on that? You guys feeling good about it?
Yeah,
As far
print
as
run
like,
is it's going as we speak. We submitted all the files this last week, and so we're as always, if you guys have back the 24/7 Comics Kickstarter, our mission is always to fulfill it ASAP because all the comics are already done, and so we already got the numbers. We submitted all the numbers last week, and so we're gonna get right into the print run and get into your hands as soon as possible. And for the most part, we try to actually fulfill before our next campaign. And so in the meantime, if you haven't checked out 247comics.com yet, please definitely check it out because some of these products will appear on the store. Basically, what we do is we'll do a print run for Heroes Be Damned, and then any extra inventory will be placed on the 24/7 Comics store. I mean, Terry, how's your experience with Heroes Be Damned? This being your first Kickstarter, and as an editor, working hand in hand with Vince Unico, the creator.
It was wonderful working with Vince. As I've said a number of times, I always have concerns about a product that the writer and artist are the same person, because sometimes the writer in them takes shortcuts hoping to pick it up with the art, or vice versa. That was not true of Vince at all. Vince is all in on everything. I was blown away by it. I was thrilled to be asked to work with him on those, and I'm thrilled to be getting ready to go on the next issues with him.
Yeah, and then we also have something we announced at Comics Pro, which we'll kind of keep closer to our chest that Terry and I are working on, and it's an intricate project. I don't know how you did the whole Marvel Comics Presents, because even on the administrative side, it's like working on multiples of work on every issue. So it's a little preview for you guys tuning in today. But it's a lot of work, man.
I didn't have to do the administrative work on Presents, but just editorially, having 4 creative teams every 2 weeks on that book, it almost killed me, but it was also really a privilege, and it allowed me to work with everyone in the industry at the time. It allowed me to give work to people just starting out. I didn't have to risk a full 22-page issue on someone who is new. I could team an experienced writer with an inexperienced artist and vice versa, and know they could pick up each other's slack. It was really, and I got to work with every character in the Marvel Universe. So that was exhausting and almost killed me, but I loved everything about it.
Yeah, so I guess just to piggyback off of that, 24/7 Comics Presents is coming very soon, our anthology series.
Yes.
So if anyone has any short stories or new concepts, we're all for introducing new IP to the world, and so that's our probably the next 6 months together until the next Comics Pro.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, Terry, congratulations once again on your Inkpot Award. It was great to be able to spend some time with you and hear about that experience. And Carl, always fun hanging out with you at San Diego, and everyone in the chat. Thank you guys for hanging out. And Carl's going to take us out with his Mannix piece.
Yep. So I wanted to show one more. Rob Liefeld had a big presence at San Diego Comic-Con, and I was super happy to pick up this Youngblood #1 recreation. Brings a ton of nostalgia to my life, and Mannix really brings something different to the table. And I love this, and I told Mickey I want to show it off today. So there you go, guys. We'll close this out.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for hanging out. Thanks, everyone in the stream, for hanging out today, and we'll catch you on the next one. Later.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.